The millionaire spoke in German in front of the child and was shocked by the perfect response. You're about to discover an incredible story that will completely change how you think about childhood, and that speaking in foreign languages doesn't guarantee privacy when brilliant children are listening. If you're ready for a journey that will make you reconsider every private conversation you've ever had in front of a child, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories like this one. Now, let's dive into this amazing tale that begins in the elegant halls of a Manhattan penthouse, where a family dinner is about to reveal secrets that will change everything. Chapter 1. The Language of Secrets. The penthouse apartment on Fifth Avenue overlooked Central Park, like a palace floating above the city, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering views that cost more per month than most families earned in a year. Inside the 8,000-square-foot residence, German industrialist Klaus Weber, 52, prepared for what he expected to be a routine family dinner with his American wife Catherine and her 8-year-old daughter Emma. From a previous marriage, Klaus had married Catherine 2 years earlier, drawn not only to her beauty and intelligence, but also to her substantial inheritance and social connections in New York's elite circles. What Catherine didn't know was that Klaus's courtship had been as calculated as his business acquisitions, a strategic merger designed to expand his European manufacturing empire into American markets while providing him with the perfect cover for financial activities that would have shocked his new family. Emma Morrison Weber sat at the enormous dining table, her legs swinging beneath the chair as she worked on homework, while the adults conducted their evening conversation. To Klaus, Emma was simply part of the package deal that came with marrying Catherine, a polite, quiet child who was easily managed with expensive gifts and minimal attention. He had no idea that behind Emma's shy demeanor was one of the most remarkable young minds he would ever encounter. What Klaus couldn't have known was that Emma possessed an extraordinary gift for languages that had manifested when she was just 4 years old. While other children were learning to read picture books, Emma was absorbing multiple languages with the ease of a natural polyglot. Her biological father, David Morrison, had been a linguistics professor who had spoken to Emma in French, Spanish, and Italian from birth. After David's death in a car accident when Emma was 6, Catherine had mentioned Emma's language abilities to Klaus, but he had dismissed them as typical childhood mimicry rather than genuine linguistic comprehension. The truth was far more remarkable. Emma spoke 6 languages fluently, including German, which she had learned by watching German films with subtitles and reading children's books that her father had collected during his academic research. But Emma had learned to keep her linguistic abilities private after observing that adults often became uncomfortable when children demonstrated capabilities they didn't expect. Catherine, mein Schatz, Klaus said in German as Emma appeared to focus on her mathematics homework, we need to discuss the financial arrangements for next month's business trip. Catherine looked apologetic. Klaus, you know I don't speak German well enough to follow complex conversations. Could we discuss this in English? Of course, Klaus replied, but his expression suggested mild irritation. He had grown accustomed to using German as a private language for sensitive business discussions, assuming that his American wife and stepdaughter couldn't understand sophisticated conversations in his native tongue. What Klaus didn't realize was that Emma understood every word he had spoken, including the subtle implication that he was about to discuss something he preferred to keep private from Catherine. Actually, Klaus continued, glancing at Emma and switching back to German, perhaps we should discuss the more sensitive details. After Emma goes to bed, some business matters are too complex for family dinner conversation. Emma continued working on her homework, giving no indication that she had understood Klaus's suggestion that adult secrets should be kept from children. But internally, her brilliant young mind was already analyzing the implications of Klaus's desire for linguistic privacy. As dinner progressed, Klaus received a phone call that he took in his study, speaking in rapid German to someone he addressed as Heinrich. Emma could hear fragments of the conversation from the dining room, and what she heard made her stomach tighten with concern. Die Transfere müssen diese Woche abgeschlossen werden, Klaus was saying. The transfers must be completed this week. The American authorities are asking too many questions about the shell companies. Emma's German comprehension was sophisticated enough to understand that Klaus was discussing financial transfers and expressing concern about American Authorities investigating shell companies. Even at 8 years old, Emma knew enough about her stepfather's business to understand that shell companies were often used to hide money, and that American authorities asking questions was probably not a good thing. When Klaus returned to the dinner table, his mood had noticeably darkened. "Catherine, I need to travel to Switzerland earlier than planned. Some urgent matters have arisen with our European operations." "How urgent?" Catherine asked, concerned by her husband's obvious stress. Klaus glanced at Emma and replied in German, "Urgent enough that I may need to liquidate some American assets and transfer the funds offshore before federal investigators understand what they're looking at." Emma felt her heart racing as she processed Klaus's words. She understood that he was planning to move money out of America to avoid federal investigators, something that sounded very much like what her father had once explained was called money laundering when they had watched a crime drama together. "Emma, sweetheart," Catherine said, noticing her daughter's unusually quiet demeanor, "you've been very focused on your homework. Is everything all right?" Emma looked up at her mother, then at Klaus, who was watching her with the casual disinterest he always showed toward children's concerns. "I'm fine, Mama. Just thinking about a problem." "Mathematical problems can be challenging," Klaus said dismissively in English, clearly assuming that Emma's concerns were limited to elementary school arithmetic. If only Klaus had known that the problem Emma was thinking about involved understanding why her stepfather was discussing hiding money from federal investigators and what that might mean for her mother's safety and financial security. That evening, as Catherine tucked Emma into bed, the little girl struggled with whether to share her concerns about Klaus's mysterious German conversations. "Mama," Emma said carefully, "do you think it's important for families to share secrets with each other?" Catherine smiled and brushed Emma's hair back from her forehead. "I think families should be honest with each other about things that matter, but adults sometimes have business concerns that children don't need to worry about. What if the business concerns might hurt our family?" Catherine's expression grew more serious. "Emma, is there something specific you're worried about?" Emma wanted desperately to tell her mother about Klaus's German conversations, but she was also afraid of the consequences. What if Klaus became angry at her for eavesdropping? What if her mother didn't believe her? What if revealing her German comprehension made Klaus suspicious of what else she might understand? "I just want to make sure you're safe and happy," Emma said finally. "Oh, sweetheart," Catherine said, hugging her daughter tightly. "Klaus takes very good care of us. We're safe and secure, and you don't need to worry about adult problems." As Catherine left the room, Emma lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, her young mind grappling with knowledge that felt too big and dangerous for an 8-year-old to carry alone. She understood that Klaus was planning to hide money from American authorities, but she didn't understand why or what it might mean for her family if he were caught. What Emma didn't know was that her linguistic abilities were about to become the key to uncovering one of the largest international money laundering operations in recent history, and that her perfect German comprehension would soon place her at the center of a federal investigation that would change her family's life forever. The next morning would bring conversations that would test Emma's courage and force her to decide whether protecting her family meant staying silent about Klaus's secrets or finding a way to reveal the truth before it was too late. The foundation of Emma's understanding was about to shift as she realized that some secrets are too dangerous to keep. If you're as concerned as we are about what Emma overheard, and as impressed by her remarkable linguistic abilities, make sure you've hit that like button and subscribed to our channel, because what happens when Emma decides to act on her knowledge will completely change everything. Chapter 2. The Burden of Understanding. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor that would test Emma's linguistic abilities and force her to confront the full implications of Klaus's secretive German conversations. Heinrich Müller, Klaus's business partner from Munich, arrived at the penthouse with the urgent demeanor of someone carrying dangerous news. "Klaus, wir haben ein großes Problem," Heinrich announced as soon as he entered the apartment, apparently unaware that Emma was having breakfast nearby. "We have a big problem. The FBI has frozen 3 of our New York accounts, and they're requesting documentation for all international transfers." From the past 2 years, Emma nearly choked on her orange juice as she heard Heinrich's words. She understood that FBI account freezing was serious trouble, the kind of trouble that meant Klaus's business activities were under federal investigation. Sprechen wir im Büro, Klaus replied tersely in German, gesturing toward his study. Let's talk in the office. But Heinrich was too agitated to wait for privacy. Die Schweizer Bank hat uns gewarnt, dass amerikanische Behörden Informationen über unsere Offshore-Konten angefordert haben. He continued in rapid German. The Swiss bank warned us that American authorities have requested information about our offshore accounts. Emma continued eating her cereal, but her young mind was processing Heinrich's words with growing alarm. She understood that Swiss banks, offshore accounts and FBI investigations were components of very serious adult problems, problems that her stepfather had apparently been hiding from her mother. Catherine entered the kitchen at that moment, smiling at their houseguest. Heinrich, how wonderful to see you. I hope you'll stay for lunch. Natürlich, Heinrich replied politely, then immediately switched back to German. Klaus, we need to accelerate the asset transfer timeline. If the Americans freeze the Swiss accounts too, we could lose everything. Klaus shot Heinrich a warning look and gestured again toward his study. Let's discuss business matters privately. As the two men walked away, Emma heard Heinrich's voice carrying from the hallway. Das Kind versteht doch kein Deutsch, oder? The child doesn't understand German, does she? Klaus's reply made Emma's blood run cold. Nein, sie ist nur ein gewöhnliches amerikanisches Kind. Wir können frei sprechen. No, she's just an ordinary American child. We can speak freely. Emma felt a surge of anger at being dismissed as just an ordinary American child. But more importantly, she realized that Klaus and Heinrich were about to discuss criminal activities in her presence because they assumed she couldn't understand them. Over the next hour, as Emma pretended to play quietly in the living room, she overheard a conversation that revealed the full scope of Klaus's illegal operations. The men discussed money laundering schemes, tax evasion strategies, and plans to transfer millions of dollars out of American banks before federal investigators could freeze additional accounts. Die Operation umfasst über 200 Millionen Dollar, Heinrich was saying. The operation involves over $200 million that we've moved through shell companies over the past 3 years. Und was ist mit den Zeugen? Klaus asked. And what about the witnesses? Wir haben Wege, ihre Aussagen zu diskreditieren, Heinrich replied with disturbing casualness. We have ways to discredit their testimonies. Emma didn't fully understand what discrediting witnesses meant, but the tone of Heinrich's voice suggested something threatening. That made her feel scared for people she didn't even know. The conversation continued for 2 hours, during which Emma learned that Klaus had been using his marriage to Catherine as cover for massive financial crimes, that he had been stealing money from his European business partners, and that he was planning to flee to a country without extradition treaties if the FBI investigation progressed too far. Most disturbingly, Emma heard Klaus discussing Catherine's financial situation. When alles zusammenbricht, wird Catherine für alle amerikanischen Schulden verantwortlich sein. Ihre Unterschrift steht auf vielen Dokumenten. When everything collapses, Catherine will be responsible for all the American debts. Her signature is on many documents. Emma's heart raced as she realized that Klaus had been manipulating her mother into signing documents that would make her legally responsible for his crimes. Catherine, who trusted Klaus completely and signed business papers without question, had unknowingly become liable for financial crimes she knew nothing about. When Heinrich finally left, Emma was alone with knowledge that felt enormous and terrifying. She understood that Klaus was a criminal who was using her family, that her mother was in legal danger, and that federal investigators were closing in on activities that could destroy their lives. That afternoon, while Klaus was supposedly attending business meetings but was actually coordinating his escape plans, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She waited until Catherine was taking her daily nap, then used her mother's computer to research FBI contact information. Emma had learned to use computers from her father, who had taught her that technology could be a tool for learning and communication. Now she hoped it could be a tool for protecting her family. Emma's hands trembled as she typed an email to the FBI's New York office. Dear FBI, my name is Emma Morrison Weber, and I am 8 years old. My stepfather Klaus Weber has been talking in German about hiding money from you and making my mother responsible for crimes she doesn't know about. I understand German, and I heard him planning to leave America with stolen money. I don't know if children can be witnesses, but I think someone should know what he said. I am scared for my mother, and I don't know who else to tell. Emma. She included as many details as she could remember from Klaus and Heinrich's conversations, translating their German, discussions into English and providing information about timeline, amounts of money and plans for asset transfers. After sending the email, Emma sat in her room wondering if she had done the right thing. She had never contacted law enforcement before, and she wasn't sure if anyone would believe an 8-year-old who claimed to understand adult criminal conversations in a foreign language. What Emma didn't know was that her email had reached Special Agent Sarah Martinez of the FBI's Economic Crimes Division, an investigator who had been tracking Klaus Weber's activities for months but had been unable to penetrate the linguistic barrier that protected his most sensitive communications. Agent Martinez read Emma's email with growing excitement, realizing that this remarkably articulate child might be the key to understanding the full scope of Klaus's criminal enterprise. But she also understood that involving an 8-year-old in a federal investigation would require extraordinary care and protection. That evening, as Klaus returned home with the satisfied expression of someone who believed his escape plans were proceeding smoothly, he had no idea that his assumption about Emma's linguistic limitations had just provided federal investigators with the evidence they needed to bring down his entire criminal organization. The ordinary American child he had dismissed so carelessly was about to prove that underestimating young intelligence could be the most costly mistake of his criminal career. Chapter 3. The Courage of Truth. The next morning brought a development that neither Klaus nor Emma anticipated. Special Agent Sarah Martinez arrived at the penthouse, accompanied by Agent David Chen and a specialist in child psychology, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez. Emma watched through her bedroom window as the official-looking adults approached their building, her heart pounding with the realization that her email had prompted immediate federal response. Catherine answered the door with the confused politeness of someone unaccustomed to unexpected visits from law enforcement. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "Mrs. Weber, I'm Special Agent Martinez with the FBI," Sarah said, displaying her credentials. "We need to speak with you about some concerns regarding your husband's business activities." Emma could hear the conversation from the hallway, her German comprehension now complemented by an advanced understanding of English that allowed her to follow complex adult discussions with remarkable precision. "I don't understand," Catherine replied, her voice carrying growing alarm. "Klaus is a legitimate businessman. There must be some mistake." "Ma'am, we've received information suggesting that your husband may be involved in international money laundering and that you may unknowingly be at legal risk due to documents you've signed." Klaus emerged from his study at that moment, his face immediately hardening when he saw the federal agents. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded in heavily accented English. "Mr. Weber, we have some questions about your financial activities and your use of shell companies to transfer funds offshore," Agent Martinez replied. Klaus's mind raced through possibilities. How had the FBI learned about his shell companies? Who could have provided them with information about his offshore activities? His security had been perfect. All sensitive conversations conducted in German, all documentation carefully compartmentalized. "I demand to speak with my attorney before answering any questions," Klaus said. "That's your right," Agent Martinez agreed. "But Mr. Weber, we also need to speak with Emma Morrison Weber about some information she may have." Emma felt her stomach drop as all eyes turned toward her. Klaus looked confused, then angry, as he processed the implication that an 8-year-old child might somehow be relevant to a federal investigation. "Emma?" Catherine asked, bewildered. "What could Emma possibly know about business matters?" Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with the gentle manner of someone trained to work with children in traumatic situations. "Emma, you contacted us with some concerns about conversations you'd overheard. We'd like to talk with you about what you understood." Klaus's face went white as the implications hit him. "That's impossible," he said in German. "Das Kind versteht kein Deutsch." Emma looked directly at Klaus and replied in perfect German, "Doch, ich verstehe jedes Wort, das Sie gesagt haben." "Yes, I understand every word you've said." The silence that followed was deafening. Klaus stared at Emma with an expression of shock and growing fury, while Catherine looked between her daughter and her husband with complete confusion. "Emma," Catherine said slowly, "you speak German?" "Ja, Mama," Emma replied, continuing in German. "Ich spreche seit Jahren Deutsch. Papa hat mir beigebracht, dass Sprachen wichtig sind." Yes, Mama. I've been speaking German for years. Daddy taught me that languages are important. Agent Martinez stepped forward. Emma, can you tell us what Mr. Weber and his visitor discussed yesterday morning? Emma looked at her mother, then at Klaus, whose expression had become threatening despite the presence of federal agents. Taking a deep breath, Emma began recounting the conversation between Klaus and Heinrich, translating their German discussions into English with remarkable accuracy. They said the FBI had frozen accounts and was asking about international transfers. Heinrich said American authorities wanted information about Swiss accounts. Klaus said they needed to move $200 million before you could freeze more accounts. Catherine sank into a chair as Emma continued her testimony. Klaus said when everything collapses, Mama would be responsible for American debts because her signature is on documents. He said they have ways to discredit witnesses who might testify against them. Emma, Dr. Rodriguez said, gently, how long have you been understanding these conversations? Since Klaus started living with us, Emma replied. He always speaks German when he doesn't want Mama to understand, but I learned German from Daddy's books and movies. Klaus could no longer contain his rage. Sehr kleines, he began in German, then caught himself and switched to English. You have been spying on private business conversations. I wasn't spying, Emma said quietly but firmly. You were talking in front of me, because you thought I was too stupid to understand. But I'm not stupid, and I know right from wrong. Agent Martinez intervened. Mr. Weber, we have enough probable cause for a search warrant. Based on Emma's information and our ongoing investigation, you're under arrest for money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to defraud the United States government. As agents moved to restrain Klaus, he looked at Emma with undisguised hatred. Du hast meine Familie zerstört. You destroyed my family. Emma's response, delivered in flawless German, silenced everyone in the room. Nein, Sie haben unsere Familie zerstört, als Sie beschlossen haben, meine Mutter zu benutzen und uns alle in Gefahr zu bringen. No, you destroyed our family when you decided to use my mother and put us all in danger. Catherine stared at her 8-year-old daughter with newfound understanding and pride. Emma, sweetheart, why didn't you tell me you could understand what Klaus was saying? I tried to ask. You about family secrets, Emma replied, switching back to English. But I was scared Klaus would be angry if he knew I understood him, and I was scared you wouldn't believe me. Agent Martinez knelt down to Emma's level. Emma, what you did was very brave. Your information will help us protect other families from being hurt by Mr. Weber's crimes. As Klaus was led away in handcuffs, he made one final attempt to intimidate the child who had brought down his criminal empire. Speaking in rapid German, he said, Du wirst dafür bezahlen, meine Freunde werden dich finden. You will pay for this, my friends will find you. Emma looked Klaus directly in the eyes and replied with the fearless composure of someone who had already faced her worst fears. Ihre Freunde werden zu beschäftigt sein, ihre eigenen Probleme zu lösen, wenn das FBI sie auch verhaftet. Your friends will be too busy solving their own problems when the FBI arrests them too. Agent Martinez smiled with admiration for Emma's courage and intelligence. Emma, did your stepfather just threaten you? Yes, Emma replied calmly. He said his friends would find me and make me pay for reporting his crimes. Well, Agent Martinez said, as additional charges were added to Klaus's arrest warrant, threatening a federal witness, especially a child, is a very serious crime. Mr. Weber just made his legal situation much worse. As Klaus was finally removed from the apartment, Catherine hugged Emma tightly, realizing that her 8-year-old daughter had not only saved their family from financial ruin, but had also demonstrated remarkable courage in protecting them from a man who had been manipulating and deceiving them for years. The little girl who had been dismissed as just an ordinary American child had just proven that intelligence, courage, and moral clarity could triumph over criminal sophistication and adult arrogance. But Emma's role in bringing Klaus to justice was just the beginning of a story that would change how federal investigators thought about child witnesses and how families protected themselves from those who would exploit their trust. Chapter 4. The Wisdom of Small Voices. 6 months after Klaus Weber's arrest, the federal courthouse in downtown Manhattan buzzed with unprecedented media attention as the case that had become known as the child witness investigation reached its dramatic conclusion. Emma Morrison Weber, now 9 years old, had become the youngest person in FBI history to provide key testimony in a major international crime investigation. Emma sat in the witness box, her small frame dwarfed by the formal courtroom setting, but her voice clear and confident as she answered questions from federal prosecutor Rebecca Adams. The courtroom was packed with journalists, legal experts, and law enforcement officials who had come to witness this historic moment. "Emma," Prosecutor Adams said gently, "can you tell the court how you first realized that your stepfather was discussing illegal activities?" Emma looked directly at the jury, her remarkable composure reflecting months of preparation with child psychologists and victim advocates. When Heinrich came to visit, they spoke in German about FBI investigations and hiding money. "I knew from school that hiding money from the government was illegal, and I was worried about my mother. And you understood these complex German conversations despite being only 8 years old at the time?" "Yes, ma'am, my daddy taught me that understanding languages helps you understand people and situations. He said languages are tools for discovering truth." The defense attorney, Thomas Richardson, had struggled throughout the trial with the unprecedented challenge of cross-examining a child witness whose testimony was both devastating and remarkably sophisticated. During his questioning, he attempted to suggest that Emma had misunderstood the adult conversations she'd overheard. "Emma," Richardson said carefully, "isn't it possible that you heard German words but didn't fully comprehend their meaning in context?" Emma's response demonstrated the sharp intelligence that had made her such an effective witness. "Mr. Richardson," Klaus said, "Die Operation umfasst über $200 million, which means the operation involves over $200 million. Heinrich said, "Wir haben Wege, Ihre Aussagen zu diskreditieren," which means we have ways to discredit their testimonies. I understood both the words and what they meant. Richardson tried a different approach, but surely a child your age couldn't understand the complex legal and financial concepts involved in these discussions. "I understand that stealing is wrong," Emma replied simply. "I understand that lying to hide crimes is wrong. I understand that using my mother to cover up illegal activities was wrong." Klaus thought I was too young to understand, but being young doesn't make you unable to tell right from wrong. The courtroom fell silent as Emma's words highlighted the moral clarity that had driven her to contact federal investigators, despite her fear and uncertainty. Agent Sarah Martinez, who had become Emma's primary contact throughout the investigation, watched with pride as the young girl who had changed her career testified with remarkable poise. Emma's case had led to the development of new FBI protocols for working with child witnesses and had resulted in the arrest of 17 additional individuals involved in Klaus's international money laundering network. "Emma," Prosecutor Adams continued, "what do you want people to understand about your decision to contact the FBI?" Emma thought carefully before answering. "I want children to know that adults don't always make good decisions and that sometimes kids have to help protect their families. I want adults to know that children understand more than they think we do and that we can help solve problems if they listen to us." The trial's conclusion brought a verdict that satisfied federal prosecutors and provided justice for the numerous victims of Klaus's financial crimes. Klaus Weber was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. His assets were seized, his criminal network was dismantled, and several international banking institutions faced substantial penalties for their role in facilitating money laundering. But perhaps more importantly, Emma's case had established legal precedents about the capability of child witnesses and had led to new protections for families targeted by financial predators. 3 months after the trial, Emma and Catherine testified before a congressional committee investigating international money laundering. Emma's testimony helped shape new legislation requiring enhanced disclosure of foreign financial activities and providing better protection for families who unknowingly become involved in financial crimes. "Emma," the committee chairman asked, "what would you tell other children who might overhear adults discussing activities that seem wrong or illegal?" Emma's response reflected the wisdom she had gained through her extraordinary experience. "I would tell them to trust their instincts about right and wrong, to talk to adults they trust, and to remember that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are scared." And what message do you have for adults who might underestimate children's understanding or capabilities? I would tell them that children see and hear more than adults think we do. We understand when something is wrong, and we want to help protect our families. Adults should listen to children's concerns instead of assuming we don't understand important things. A year after Klaus's conviction, Emma had returned to a normal childhood, but her impact on law enforcement and child protection continued to grow. The Emma Protocol had been adopted by federal agencies nationwide, providing guidelines for recognizing and properly utilizing child witnesses in complex investigations. Catherine, who had been completely exonerated of any wrongdoing and had recovered financially through the seizure of Klaus's illegal assets, often marveled at her daughter's courage and intelligence. "Emma, do you ever regret getting involved in such serious adult problems?" Emma, now 10 years old and thriving in school, considered the question thoughtfully. "I regret that Klaus tricked us and put our family in danger, but I don't regret helping the FBI stop him from hurting other families. Daddy always said that intelligence is only valuable when you use it to help people." Dr. Rodriguez, who had continued working with Emma throughout the legal process, noted in her final report, "Emma Morrison Webber demonstrates that children possess far greater capacity for understanding complex situations than our legal system has traditionally recognized. Her case proves that age does not diminish moral clarity or the ability to distinguish right from wrong." Agent Martinez, who had been promoted partly based on the success of the Weber investigation, kept a photo of Emma on her desk as a reminder that crucial intelligence could come from the most unexpected sources. Emma taught us that assumptions about who can and cannot understand complex information can blind us to valuable witnesses and critical evidence. On the anniversary of Klaus's arrest, Emma received a letter from a child in California whose family had been protected from a similar financial predator because of new laws inspired by Emma's case. The letter reminded Emma that her courage had created ripple effects that continued protecting families across the country. Standing in her bedroom, looking out at Central Park, where she now played safely with friends, Emma reflected on the journey that had taken her from frightened child to federal witness to advocate for other children's voices. Her experience had taught her that intelligence comes in many forms, that courage grows stronger when exercised, and that even small voices can create powerful change when they speak truth. Klaus Weber had learned too late that underestimating a child's intelligence and moral courage could be the most costly mistake of a criminal career. His assumption that Emma was just an ordinary American child had led to the destruction of a criminal empire and the protection of countless families from financial predators. In the end, Emma's perfect German response had done more than shock Klaus. It had proven that wisdom and justice recognize no age limits, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important truths. The story of Emma Morrison Webber reminds us that children are far more perceptive and intelligent than adults often realize, and that underestimating young minds can have serious consequences. Emma's incredible courage in exposing her stepfather's crimes shows us that moral clarity and the desire to protect family can inspire extraordinary bravery, regardless of age. Her perfect German response didn't just shock Klaus, it brought down an entire criminal empire and helped create new protections for families everywhere. If this story opened your eyes to the remarkable capabilities of children and the importance of listening to young voices, please like this video to help us share this crucial message about respecting intelligence at any age. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories about courage, wisdom, and the power of speaking truth, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss content that could change how you see the world. Have you ever been surprised by a child's understanding or wisdom? Share your story in the comments below, and remember, sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths, and underestimating anyone because of their age can be a dangerous mistake.